Good afternoon, everyone. This is Yoli Rome. I'm the Associate Dean of the College for First Year Sophomore Advising. And this webinar is primarily for academic advisors. I know we did have a lot of people who had signed up who are likely students. Students are certainly welcome to watch, but again, this is primarily for advisors. The other thing I would say is there were two webinars last week, one for returning students and one for first year students. They were recorded and they will be posted later on this week. So to start with, again, I'm Yoli Rome, and I'm going to have the panelists introduce themselves, and we'll start with Dean Cohen.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Carol Cohen, and I'm Senior Associate Dean of the College for Class Year Advising and Personal and Health Issues.
And Rob, can you introduce yourself?
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rob Fitzgerald. I'm the University Registrar here at Brown.
And Dean Rodriguez?
Hi, I'm Bethania Rodriguez, and I am Deputy Dean of the College for the Curriculum and Co-Curriculum.
We're going to go over advising guidelines, the timeline for pre-registration and registration for August, September, and then answer questions that people have. There's a lot of information here. There's a lot of information that other offices also have. This session is really geared towards academic advising. Some questions that came in are about testing and protocols and housing. So there are lots of other people who have expertise in those areas, and we will leave that to them. And we will focus on academic advising today. So Carol, can you let us know what our advising goal is?
Sure. So it's obvious that our advising goal remains the same, even under remote learning conditions, and maybe especially under remote learning and advising conditions. I'll just quickly read Rashid's nice quote here. Our goal is a high one, that each and every one of our students is engaged, empowered, and transformed by their education. What's unique about Brown is that we elevate the role of students in achieving that goal as active participants in framing their own education. So I note here that we, Yoli, Bessenia, and I and all of our colleagues have been talking with students all summer, and certainly through the spring after Brown went remote. And one comment that I've heard quite frequently from students is that the dynamic of remote advising and learning actually helps to mitigate the kind of hierarchical or authority dynamic that exists between them and all of us, and that has given them kind of a greater sense of agency over their decision making and over their choices. So from an advising perspective, I think that's extremely positive and sort of gives us a bit of an advantage going into the year. Our role is the same: help students identify and reflect on their options, make thoughtful choices, access appropriate resources. Again, our role is as partners, as mirrors, and as connectors. So we help students connect with all of the other resources that we know exist in the Brown University ecosystem. And just to tick off sort of some of the most commonly used and needed resources, the Office of International Programs, Career Lab, Health Careers Advising, the Curricular Resource Center, those are all within the college. And then outside of the college, the Student Accessibility Office, concentration advisors, departmental undergraduate groups, and then, of course, a host of personal support resources like CAPS and student support. So as many of you know, these resources are all listed and linked on our website, on the in the advisor handbook. So we are frequently acting as partners with other folks and offices on campus on behalf of students.
All right, Dean Rodriguez, can you tell us about what is different for this?
So thanks, Carol. Carol talked about what is consistent or what's remained the same. And in terms of what's different, obviously there are significant differences in the way that we are approaching registration for this upcoming year under the current conditions. So for one, normally students would have continuing students, that is, would have pre-registered in April. And that is normally takes place by specific day with seniority from seniors to juniors to sophomores. And each class year usually starts, on the morning of their assigned pre-registration opening date with the click of a button. And usually we know that students are sort of with their fingers ready to pre-register what's in their shopping cart. With students continuing to be dispersed throughout various time zones, we know from the fall location of study form that at least 12 to 15% of our students will continue to be remote, that students, and of course, during what we'll talk about later in the quiet period, all students will not be able to attend class in the first week, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But students will not be able to pre-register at the exact same instant, regardless, of where they are throughout the world. So what we're asking students to do is actually to enter the courses that they're interested in their shopping carts as they normally would. And there will be a process through which the registrar's office and the dean of the college will actually pre-register for students 1 to 3 courses that are in their shopping cart. And so through a sort of matching process, we will try to match students with as many of the courses in their cart as is possible, 1 to 3 of those. And normally, we know that students will prioritize courses that have limited enrollment and might over-enroll in those and actually under-enroll in courses that have unlimited enrollment because they know that those spaces will be available. This year, with this process where students will actually be registered, registration will happen in their behalf based on what's in their shopping carts. The goal is that we want as many of students as possible to be able to register and get seats in courses in their cart with a prioritization that's based on, yes, to an extent, seniority, as it always has been, but also other factors. So for instance, courses that have a hybrid component. We know that there are going to be students that are on campus. We know that there are particular concerns facing students on F1 visa, international students. So we want to make sure that students who are on campus actually have priority access to courses that have on-campus or face-to-face components. We also want to be mindful of concentration requirements and ensuring that students are able to graduate along their timeline without delays towards their concentration. So those are some of the factors that are going to go in. It is going to be sort of an experimental process, but we hope that actually some of the challenges that we normally experience with pre-registration periods and registration periods in terms of anticipating the number of students having lots of courses in their cart that maybe, or being registered for courses knowing that they aren't going to take all of them, but are sort of deciding between courses and saving seats in multiple courses. Those types of inconsistencies between what students are sort of exploring and what they intend to actually take, we hope will be somewhat facilitated by this process. So shopping period, as has been mentioned in previous emails from the president and the dean of the college, will be virtual, which means that students will not be able to actually physically be present in the first week of classes. And I think the next slide actually has the dates. So we know that there is a sort of virtual shopping period, which is the first 2 weeks of the normal semester. And then that is also inclusive of a quiet period, which is a period when students are going to be limiting their contacts with others because students are going to be traveling from home and from various locations. And so the quiet period is essentially in recognition of the fact that we're going to be largely social distancing in the first few weeks of the semesters and not actually attending class until September 16th. I'm going to pass it over to Rob, who's going to talk a little bit more about the calendar with the dates that are in front of you now.
Thank you, Dean Rodriguez. As you can see from the slides that are presented in front of you, we started with July 27th. that's when we relaunched courses at Brown. And as you've been able to tell, that information is kept up to date regularly. And I encourage you to continue to view that information because things are still moving about in certain classes. Maybe they're changing the delivery mode. They may be changing the time slightly. They may be adding discussion sections. I just encourage you to constantly be looking at that process until August 10th. Once we get to August 10th, as you've received in messaging from the college, as of August 10th at noon, your primary cart should really entail holding all the contents of the courses you really would like to register for, your students would like to register for. Because beginning on August 10th, throughout that week, we will be running this matching process along with the college in terms of everything that Dean Rodriguez alluded to, based on semester standing, based on your concentration declaration and ask, if it's been advisor approved. You know, all those things will be taken into account. And the goal is to get students as maximum number of courses as they can, up to 3. But that doesn't mean that anything in your cart simply goes away. So you can continue to add things in your primary cart throughout that period. But if it's not in your cart by August 10th at noon, as far as the students are concerned, those courses would not be pulled in for the matching process. So everything that you want included in the matching process has to be in by the 10th at noon. And again, once we provide the results to you on August 15th, we will communicate that out to students. You'll be able to view it in courses at Brown. If you students simply do a refresh, they would see the gray check marks for courses that they're actually registered in. They would also still see the blue shopping cart icon for courses that they're not registered for, but that still remain in their primary cart. They could also look at their internal academic record. That will indicate all the courses that they're registered in. Keep in mind for all students, and this is important as advisors, that they should pay attention to things like grade option, because the grade option will default to whatever the default grade mode is in the class. So in many cases, that's the letter grade, and they can just simply go in beginning on August 17th and adjust that as they want. Beginning on August 17th, sometime around midday, we will publish the actual start time for that, and everyone will be communicated as when that will occur. For now, I would plan on that being 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time or thereabouts. That would be the time when sophomores, juniors, and seniors can go into their courses at Brown and start making adjustments, adding additional courses that they may not have been registered for. It's basically what they typically had to wait for the day of the beginning of the semester. You will be able to do that beginning on August 17th. And as Dean Rodriguez says, that continues throughout the entire shopping period, albeit the first week's virtual, but the second week could be in person if you're registered. You can go to the class if you're registered, but be mindful that your instructors will be in contact with registered students on how to do that. All the way up until September 22nd at 5 p.m., at which time, just as we normally do, the courses at Brown goes down for add drop. Written permission or instructor override goes on every single course, and then for the following 2 weeks, students may still add with an instructor override, but it will incur the late registration fee, and they can continue to change their grade options all the way up until October 6th. So the key to remember is that, as Dean Rodriguez illustrated, the pre-registration process has changed. That's going to begin on August 10th through August 15th. Students need not do anything. They just simply have to have their courses in their primary cart. On August 15th, they will see the results. They'll have the weekend of the 15th, 16th to look at their courses. And then on the 17th, they can queue up anything in their primary cart that they want to make adjustments for and just simply go into add drop at that point in time. If the student has an override, they'll be obviously able to secure access into the class after that point as well. Go on to the next slide, and I believe that one of the deans is going to take over from here.
So In terms of your roles as advisors, I did want to address one question that I noticed came up, which was a question about overrides. So Rob talked a little bit about overrides. In the pre-registration that will take place, where students will be the registration will happen in their behalf, the process will honor any restrictions that exist on the course. So if the course is completely instructor override required, then no students will be pre-registered into that course, even if the course is in their cart. If a student puts a course in their cart and they don't meet the specifications, for instance, they don't have the prerequisites on there, maybe they came in as a transfer student and didn't actually take the prerequisite at Brown, but they have completed it, that process would proceed as normal. So they would not be pre-registered for that course because they wouldn't meet the restrictions, but they would be reaching out to instructors either in tab or via email to in order to get the override. So as you're considering, reaching out to your sophomores or addressing the questions of your sophomores, your advisees, another key change this year is that we have, for this year, eliminated alt pins. So normally sophomores would need a pin in order to register. This year, they will not need a pin to register because we know that it may not be feasible for every sophomore to be able to connect with you as their advisors or with an academic dean before this pre-registration happens on August 10th on their behalf. Sophomores have a lot of questions, understandably, about the spring and the summer terms, given that that piece remains ambiguous in the president's plans and in the university plans thus far. And that is entirely dependent on the public health situation. So we really can't really sort of answer questions about what their spring or summer will look like simply because that information is unknown to all of us as well. So a lot of our work as deans and your work as advisors has been around helping students think about their fall semester courses and thinking about their possible concentration plans, but also courses that they may want to explore outside of their concentration, and to possibly think about their goals, whether they're, if spring is possible. We will learn more about that in the future. So the primary focus might be looking at what their most sort of soon decisions are that need to be made. In terms of juniors and seniors, and I know that some of you are also directors of undergraduate studies or concentration advisors, we really would encourage you to encourage your students to go into Ask and look at their concentration declarations. That's going to be one of the factors that the pre-reg kind of process will utilize. So of course, there will still be a virtual shopping period. Students will still be able to add and drop courses into their cart if they weren't enrolled in them on that August 10th to the 15th dates. But certainly having a clear sense of what their remaining requirements are and what courses, whether in CAB and also in the provisional partial spreadsheet that was shared with students listing what we think might be offered in the spring and summer based on the departmental plans. That refreshing their memories or having a clearer sense of what is required and when those courses are going to be offered would be an important sort of first step for them to consider what specifically they would want to prioritize in their shopping carts for the fall. And then certainly we would want, as during any year, to help students think about opportunities for engaging within their concentration and beyond their concentration. So one of the emails that was sent, I believe today from the Sheridan Center is about research and opportunities for sort of remote and kind of unconventional engagement during this time period. And there are a number of suggestions that, that faculty and departments, advisors, but also students themselves might look at in that on the Sheridan Center's website if you look through that document. But this is a time when there is so much anxiety and stress and worry and fear, and on all of our parts, right? And so I think the important pieces of advice that we might give to advisors would be to really still try to engage students in conversations about what might be sort of meaningful opportunities for engagement and exploration within whatever sets of constraints they might be operating under, and within the constraints that we're all operating under, in terms of whether that's remote instruction, being in different time zones, and then, you know, really still trying to think about what their goals might be for the academic year and ways of connecting with faculty or with other opportunities. I think Rob is going to talk a little bit if we're ready to move to the next slide. Did you want to?
I'm going to hop in here because there are some questions before we get to first years. There are some questions about advising sophomores, juniors, and seniors. Again, this is for advisors. So any sophomore who wants to change their advisor, email advising@Brown. Make sure you ask that other advisor, and we will do that for you. Also, there's a question about whether or not academic deans have a certain group of advisors. So I am the first year sophomore dean. So if there are any questions about first year sophomore advising, one, I'd encourage you to read the handbook that we sent out because I can't answer every question right now, but we will also have more advisor sessions as we get closer to the terms in late August, which is typical. But we wanted to get this up before the close of the pre-reg period. So the junior senior dean right now is not at Brown, but Carol and I both and Basenya all help with concentration advisors, junior senior advising in some capacity. So as much as you have questions that we can answer, feel free to contact any of us. The other question, a lot of students want to know how they should put courses in their cart. And what we are really encouraging students to do is put the courses in your cart that interest you, that you want to take next term. There really isn't a process to game the system as students would have done it in past. This really is to allow for as many students to get as many opportunities as possible to fill as many classes with the seats that are available. So students really should not be trying to game the system, but should be letting us know what their interests are.
Can I say, just building on that a little bit, Yoli, that I think it really isn't going to be possible because students are not likely going to be enrolled in lots of courses with limited enrollment, because as Yoli said, the purpose is to maximize the ability for all students to be able to have a seat in the courses that are in their cart. So if one student puts, you know, 3 or 4 limited enrollment courses in their cart, the goal is to actually spread out those limited enrollment seats across as many students as possible that have that course in their cart. So they can try it. It's not going to be as effective as it was in the past, where you could actually pre-register for as many limited enrollment seats as you could get into.
Great, thank you. So I think we'll turn to first years now. First years are completely different than sophomores, juniors, seniors. As you know, they are going to be coming to campus in January. We are hoping that all advisors will be able to connect with their first years. Those advising matches we're planning to have those advising matches in late August, with the idea that advisors and Meikle-Johns can speak with their first years at least on a preliminary basis. Keeping in mind that typically advisors would have had conversations with their advisees the day before registration. But the students always did put courses in their cart just to let the dean's office know about their academic interests. So this is just operationalizing something that has happened on an informal basis, or it's not informal, but it wasn't something that the advisors necessarily had access to before the day before registration. So Rob, can you please walk us through how pre-reg and reg is going to work for first years?
Sure. Thank you, Yoli. It's very similar to the prior slide for continuing students, sophomores, juniors, and seniors, with the exception of the number and the add drop period, obviously. So we have made the accommodation for students that are first years who are now in a special classification. They aren't technically semester level ones yet, but they will be in the spring semester. They will be part of the process. That's the matching process in August. So same thing goes for incoming first year students taking a optional free course if they'd like. Get that information in by August 10th. And I think it's important to state for all students that you're advising that they also make sure if the course has, whether it's online, hybrid, in person, if it's got related components. So if there are discussion sections linked to the lecture, or in MCM, for instance, there's filming or screenings, or in the STEM fields, there's a laboratory that's associated with it. It's critical that they put all of those components in their cart, because if they don't have the full set of linked components, we won't be able to match them and ultimately register them for it. They can do things like put conflicting discussion sections with same times as a course that they're interested in. None of that really matters. The key is that they make sure that they continue the whole loop. So if you're in chemistry 33, you have all of the components, the lecture, the lab, the discussion section. And again, regardless of the modality. So on August 10th, just like the continuing students, by noon, all first years should have a set of courses that they're interested in a primary cart. The difference being that beginning on August 10th, we will be matching just one course as opposed to up to 3 courses for those students. On the 15th, they will be able to view the course that they were selected for. The difference here is on August 17th, they will not be able to make changes to their registrations. They won't be able to drop courses and add courses or swap courses at that particular point in time. That's only for the continuing students. So as the continuing students are going through their process, the first year students who have their one course are going to be matched with their first year advisor, their Mickle-Johns, their advising group. They're going to have conversations with all their advisors and their mix on August 28th to September 8th. And then beginning on September 8th, the day prior to classes beginning, they can at that point make an adjustment if there's space available, if they meet the requirements of the course. They could change the course that they were matched with to another course here at Brown. Again, they're doing so remotely, but they would also need to still meet the eligibility criteria to join that course. They simply cannot just say, oh, I want to get out of this course and into this additional course, this alternative course. They have to meet the requirements. There has to be space available. Even some online courses have caps because of TA distribution, so it's important to remember to make a quality academic experience remote, that we're not just going to throw thousands of students into an online course. There are going to be courses with enrollment limits that are being offered online because that's what the instructor feels is the quality mode of instruction for that particular course. So it's important to realize that. And again, more communication will go out from the first year advising team as it gets closer to that September 8th timeframe for students to make changes to the particular course that they're in.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to kind of turn to some of these questions. So yes, we are actively promoting first year seminars. Rob, can you answer this question that says, do returning students need to have the courses in their carts in order to have access to Canvas and course syllabi?
Correct. That goes for first year students as well. So any student that wishes to virtually shop a course without actually being registered, that has not changed. The only difference is we're moving up the access date to be August 17th. It's actually in there now. So if there's a course site available, students who have courses in their primary cart are included right now. Everyone's included in the prospective student group in Canvas. Once students are registered on August 15th and those are made public, obviously the registered students will then go into the instructor's Canvas course listing as registered students. All other students who have continued to have courses in their primary cart, again, we're not eliminating the courses. They're not being deleted. They are going to remain in their primary cart. For the student's view, they have a little blue shopping cart as opposed to a gray check mark for a registration. They will continue to get access through Canvas course materials until September 22nd.
Okay. Thank you. I'm going to turn to the next slide. These are some things as first-year advisors we'd like you to know, consider, think about. Again, advisors and Meikle-Johns and students won't be matched until the end of August, which is typical for any year. And within that time block, so instead of it being the day before classes, we would have this kind of extended period, and your Meikle-John will work with you to schedule those. We're not expecting everyone to be available August 28th, really through that full week, week and a half, I think. So there's no alt pin for first years for the fall 2020 registration. I think it's really important to let students know, reassure them that the course is voluntary, consider it a +1. Also, we haven't announced yet, but the fall 2020 engagement activities that are being planned are also voluntary. They are ways for students to engage, ways for students to consider different topics. We're curating a whole bunch of different things from around the university. But again, it is voluntary, and students will not be behind if they don't take the class, if they don't engage in the activities. The things that will be required, we will let them know. Things like the student tutorial or the various mandatory things that we always have students do before they start. Again, there are no decisions on the spring and summer. Students can use the provisional partial course list to kind of think through what they might take in the spring term and the summer term. One thing to note is that it is a provisional partial list. So although students might think that there are courses that they want to take as they come in the spring, some courses might move, courses might be added, might be dropped, as is typical in any year. I think the best thing to do as an advisor right now is really assure students that we will be working with them. You will be working with them. For their first 2 years, their concentration, once they declare concentration, they get a concentration advisor. Students should be expanding their network of advising support, not just for their first year advisor, but with their faculty that they engage with in classes. As we're all trying to manage all this, it seems like a lot of change, but actually if we think about the purpose of advising, which is to help students through their pathway, this is the same. All right, I think right now I'm going to turn to some questions. And a couple questions that I've seen have come through for transfer students. So transfers have they are coming to campus in the fall. They are having a full orientation virtually through August and into September. Advising is happening primarily through the academic deans, as we weren't quite prepared to have faculty starting advising. However, what we will be doing is having those students, especially juniors, reaching out to concentration advisors as it gets closer to the term. Rob, did you have something to add?
Yeah, that's a great question. We've gotten this question from transfer students. So if you're an advisor who's advising a transfer student, do keep in mind that the college has accelerated its transfer articulation process in terms of credits that are coming through. So we are placing those on the students' records now in terms of transfer credits as we get them from the college. So if a transfer student has a question to you about, right now they don't have the prerequisite based off of their prior transfer work, it is critical that they reach out to the host department to get their unassigned credit, for instance, assigned as the equivalency, because that would be used in the matching process for transfer students, because it's important that they have the prerequisites on their record. So if you have a transfer advisee who asks that question about, okay, I have a math unassigned credit on my course, can I get that reassigned to math 100? The answer is yes, and to do so now, they should reach out to the math department to go through ask and have that transfer credit reassigned to the Brown equivalency so that we have it for the matching process that will begin on August 10th.
Great. Again, this is primarily for advisors. First years, anyone can really put as many courses in their primary cart as they would like. What does that mean? That means that if you have 200 courses in your cart, when we go to close it on August 10th, you will be registered for one of those 200 courses. So really, when we had written put 3 to 5, that's a more accurate number that will help you get into one particular class that you're interested in. Again, students can change what they want to be registered for. We're encouraging it to happen after, so registration won't open again for first years until after September 2nd, because we really want you to have those conversations with your advisor, with the Meiklejohn, and also kind of understand your fuller path through Brown. Another question is about taking a leave. If you are still, the deadline to take a leave was August 1. Which was a Saturday, so maybe people haven't processed those, but really you need to get that in as soon as possible. That is informing housing, that is informing all of the kinds of very logistical acrobats that everyone is doing. So as much as we want to be flexible all the way up until the start of the term, we really want you to get that in soon. There's a lot of questions in here about first years. Really, it seems like these are questions that first years are asking. Again, that webinar will be posted within this week, and I would encourage you to look back at that. And could the Mikkel and university events, could you post the provisional partial list? It seems like some people might not be able to see or don't know where the link is, so direct link would be better. And Rob, there's a question here on shopping. Will CAB allow more students in the max enrollment to put the course in their cart?
Yes, that remains the same. We don't place a limit on how many courses you can have in your cart. In fact, we've seen students with over 100. I do not advise it because that's a lot to manage in one cart. That's why we created alternative carts. Students can name, other carts. And that's probably advised, particularly in this world, that if there are courses you're interested in shopping, up until August 10th, it would be good to put those in a backup cart. You can name it whatever you like, but in the primary cart for the students, it's important for advisors to tell the students, definitely put the ones that you absolutely are interested in. And then afterwards, after August 10th on noon, you can actually copy all those contents from your secondary cart into your primary cart with a click of a button. We don't limit that. Enrollment limits are strictly for registrations. So that is important to note. And going back to the point that many deans have already made is that, you definitely don't want to try to put too many courses in your cart for the August 10th. You also don't want too little. Many students may think that if I put one course in my cart, that's the one I'm going to get. I would not advise that because the likelihood could be very small. So that's another way that your advisees may think they could game the system by putting just one course in their cart. that's ultimately probably not going to work out too well for the students. They could be in a situation where they have no courses on August 15th. So it's definitely put more than, 3 to 5 courses in your cart that you're truly interested in.
So it seems like there aren't more questions coming in that are for advisors. There are some questions from students. Students, I would encourage you to look through all the materials we've sent out. I know it's a lot, but I don't know that this is we do have some of those questions already posted. So what do we expect for first-year advisors? We are hoping that first-year advisors speak with their advisees in that last week of August, first week of September, so we can talk to them, one, about if they're choosing to take a course, if they're not choosing to take a course, how did their year end, these kind of typical questions that we would ask to just get to know students. I do not know when the spring courses will be posted yet. I don't know how registration is going to work for first years yet. And really what we want to focus on is for students to talk with their advisor, their John. And also, I would tell you that the fall engagement that we're planning really allows for layers of engagement. So it will start with the advisor and the John and the students. It will go on, we'll add in faculty, we'll add in alumni, we will add in other peers, different topics, different ways to present those topics. And that announcement so that's still in the planning stages, which is what I said when I was in the webinar for first years on Friday, or maybe 2 weeks ago. So there will be an announcement about what is available at the end of the month. So we are hoping that one of the things that you might have seen in that advising considerations for first years, that we will have basically a first year platform. So this is going to be a way for advisors, advising groups to connect. It's a social mentoring kind of platform that is not quite set up yet, but that will be part of the announcement. And we are hoping that advisors can talk with first years as much as they feel comfortable. It's not, there's no set number of times, but as much as you can help them with this first choice, encourage them to engage as much as or as little as they'd like. We will be sending them out, as we would in a typical summer. Communications are coming from the college that advisors don't necessarily need to know about, but that you would be copied on them as you would have done before. Does that answer that question? So I think the other thing to know is, as students get to October, November, they're moving towards whatever registration will be for January. You would have at least one more conversation. And then how orientation is going to be virtual for first years in January, and how that engagement will happen is kind of still planning. But in the sense that you may have talked with an advisee before the semester started. We typically have advisors and advisees meet about 5 times over the year. So that would be 5 times over spring, summer. I know this is an unusual year. That's not typical to be advising necessarily over the summer. And we really hope that everyone understands the kind of care and concern that we want to show to students, and that we also want to show to you. So as much as you need to ask us questions beyond this webinar, we will try to get to them. Oh, the other thing I would mention, we did send out an email on July 26th, 29th, that had the 2019 advisor handbook. we're working on the 2020 handbook. That 2020 handbook will be very similar to the 2019. What is going to be different is kind of a tip sheet for advising first years in the fall. But really all about the philosophy, the open curriculum, degree requirements, the writing requirements, that is all in that PDF that was sent with that email. If you didn't get the email, please write to advising@brown.edu and we'll get a copy out to you. Did I forget anything, Carol?
No, I think there are some kind of more granular questions still in the Q&A. So I don't know if you want to, I mean, I can pitch a few at you or we can answer them offline.
Go ahead, if you can see them.
Sure. Let's see. So I understand in the previous first year webinar that first years would be able to change their registered course after meeting with an advisor. Is this correct? And how will, a few questions about how shopping period will work.
So yes, first years can change their course. Again, we're not opening that change possibility to them until September 2nd. And really once we open it, students can change all the way through September 22nd. Obviously, we wouldn't want students to do that. We want them to engage right away in the course and be in that course. So I'm sorry, what was the other question?
Sort of a little mechanics about how shopping period will work.
So if students have the course in their cart, my understanding is they have access to Canvas and the syllabi for all the courses that are in their cart. So even though students have now been registered for a course after August 15th, 15th, then they can still have courses in their cart that they're not registered for. And those are the courses that they can see the Canvas course, they can see the syllabi in order to allow for a shopping experience. Whether or not faculty have lectures that they can see virtually. So again, shopping period is virtual. So anyone who has those courses in their cart can also see those virtual lectures. Am I understanding that correctly, Bethany, or do you have anything to add?
No, I think that's correct. You know, for those of you that are advisors and also serving as instructors, it's really important to have updated syllabi, even if that's just sort of a template, you know, sort of like a skeleton that may change with a notice on there that it is subject to change, with information about how students can engage in the course, both registered students, but also students who are shopping in your syllabi, which you can upload at coursetools.brown.edu, and also having that information in your Canvas course site, which you can build now. And so students that are have that course in their cart will have access to that Canvas page and will be able to see your syllabi or any Zoom recordings that you might have posted in your Canvas. That's how they'll be able to engage in those first couple of weeks.
Okay, thanks. Another question is, will advisors have access to student records as they would have in the past? Yes. So once the advising matches are made public and available for you to see, for them to see, you would have that kind of access. Typically advisors have that, I think, for up to the first month of the semester. Not sure if we would change that for making it probably available for September and then again in January. Haven't really got there yet, making a decision on that. There's a question on student jobs. Don't know. We are hoping to have advising groups of 6 or less. That sometimes doesn't quite pan out for particular departments who want all incoming students in the concentration, in the declared interest to be in there. But really our goal is 6 or less, hoping to to have that number low so that you can know the students well, so your Meiklejohn can know the students well.
Yoli, there's also just a question about frequency of meetings that's expected.
Yeah, so we don't quite have that, but we're hoping that advisors talk with students in late August and again in October, November. And after that, it would follow kind of the typical pre-reg conversation, start of the semester conversation. So typically in a year, we ask for 5 advising conversations. This year would be more like 7, 8. So it's a recommendation. Obviously, people can talk to their advisees more. Some advisors might talk to advisees less. We're hoping that that is not the case. Let's see. There's a question about graduate students. Maybe, Rob, you could take that.
Sure, what's the question?
Will a graduate student have the option to change number of credits they take? For example, Bio 2980.
Yeah, so they do that the way that they always would. So graduate students are part of this matching process as well. They are given the same directions by the graduate school. So if you're a DUS or an advisor at the undergrad level and also work with graduate students, the mechanism and the time frame is exactly the same for graduate students. Everything in by August 10th at noon. Graduate students are a bit easier because they know exactly what they're supposed to take, or at least we hope so in theory. And there's less competition depending on if they're purely graduate courses. They'll probably get into more courses at the graduate level without an issue. And then once they're registered, the default will be that they're registered, like if it's a 2980 for 1 credit, on August 17th, they could go in and change the credit value to 3 credits, 5 credits, whatever they need.
Right, thanks. And Baseni, can you answer the question, will concentration advisors need to submit honors recommendations in the spring?
So the spring dates, are going to be different from what they normally are because commencement is being moved up as the semester is being made a little bit shorter in order to allow for 3 trimesters. So that date, I think is on, may not be on the academic calendar yet because it is. So the date's on the academic calendar. It's in April. It's a little bit earlier because the semester is also starting a little bit earlier and commencement is being moved earlier.
All right. And although this webinar will be posted, not quite sure about whether or not the slides need to be vetted through somebody. These are our plan dates. Again, I would say that one thing to remember is all of this is subject to change. We are going based on public health guidelines. Any announcements of changes will be made through Today at Brown, through the Healthy Brown webinar. This is our attempt to kind of take a bunch of information and make it easily digestible. And I'm sure everyone will still have more questions as we go through. We appreciate your patience. If anyone knows, we are going through definitely a lot of different scenarios, different ways we're getting information and combining all that information. So if you are still confused, we will try to help. But if you're confused, it might mean that we're confused. And we really just appreciate everyone's support and community and help as we navigate this, what I've been saying is the upside down. There one more question maybe. Okay. Any final thoughts, questions, answers? I appreciate everyone's hard work. It's been a lot in a little bit of time. I know it's going to continue to be a lot, and I really appreciate the work that you've done, the work you will do. I appreciate my colleagues, especially in the dean's office. We've all been dealing with a lot of information, and I appreciate it. Thank you.